With just over a month to go before the US election, this week on McBLOG we've had a special focus with the influence that the President and Vice President of the US can have on the direction of our culture and the values we hold as a society. Even here in New Zealand, we need to know just who the candidates are, their values and what direction they will indirectly lead the world in. Where do they stand on the issues that matter to us? Life, marriage, family, religious freedom. What's their agenda in the areas of identity politics, LGBTQ+, gender ideology, critical theory, environmental alarmism, drugs, abortion, euthanasia, social engineering, and many others. This week we've been replaying our previous examinations, our previous McBLOG episodes of each of the candidates, Vice President Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on one side, former President Donald Trump and JD Vance on the other side. We're focused on vice presidential candidates, Tim Walz and JD Vance. Yesterday, we did presidential candidate from the Democrats, Kamala Harris. And today, in our final one, we focus on Republican nominee, former President Donald Trump. I want to repeat what I wrote in 2021, January 2021, and explain why when the option is Kamala or Trump, there is only one option. Now, I'm not here to defend Trump's at times terrible tone, messaging, character and communication. But here in New Zealand, we had a Prime Minister who had what the media called superb tone, messaging, character and communication. Yet she divided the country in ways we have never seen and are still recovering from, and championed one of the most extreme abortion laws in the world. So I will always put policy above personality if I can't have both. But I'm more than happy to put on record that Trump's administration between 2017 and 2021 was superb on many issues of life, family and religious liberty. Now, there's a link that's in the explainer that will give you a long, impressive summary of superb policies over those 4 years. Trump was a breath of fresh air compared to Obama's administration. Most of these policies have been attacked, overturned and destroyed by the Biden-Harris administration, as they would have been if there had been a Hillary administration. It also highlights why most of the media hated Trump so much, and why, ironically, they never accepted his valid election for 4 years and still don't. And just as a reminder, here's the ticket that won the last election for those trying to excuse Kamala from the past 4 years of disaster. So here's just some of the highlights from the long list during Trump's presidency. Firstly, addressed the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly in 2020. In the speech, the president highlighted his administration's commitment to advancing religious liberty, protecting unborn children and combating human trafficking. He reinstated and expanded the Mexico City policy, which blocks funding for international organisations that perform or promote abortion. He rescinded President Obama's guidance that required public schools to allow transgender students to use the bathrooms and showers of their choice. Formally recognised Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and stated that the American embassy would be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He presented a global call to action on the world drug problem. The document required countries which signed to develop national action plans to reduce the demand for illicit drugs, cut off supply at their borders and strengthen international cooperation. Ironically, New Zealand refused to sign it. No surprise. Issued a new proposed regulation on conscience protections related to abortion. Would no longer conduct internal research using tissue from aborted babies, and would greatly increase the ethics rules and safeguards that govern external fetal tissue research contracts. He called states to join a coalition of countries that seek to advocate against pro-abortion policies at the World Health Organization and the United Nations. In 2019, he hosted a meeting during the UN General Assembly and gave a speech solely on the topic of religious freedom. The first time a US president has hosted a meeting focused solely on religious freedom at the UN. He removed burdensome requirements that all government funding grantees, including those that are faith-based, must accept same-sex marriages and profess gender identity as valid in order to be eligible. This included the adoption and foster care space, where these requirements had been used to shut down faith-based providers of foster care and adoption. He issued guidance that on constitutionally protected prayer and religious expression in public elementary and secondary schools. He became the first sitting president to give remarks in person at the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. That was in 2020, and in his address he stated that every child is a sacred gift from God and reiterated his effort to defend the dignity and sanctity of every human life. During his State of the Nation Union address 2020, President Trump called on Congress to pass legislation that would ban late-term abortions. He confirmed 200 plus judges who are constitutional originalists. In other words, they will interpret the law as written, rather than interpret it according to their personal policy preferences. Maybe we could have that in the New Zealand Supreme Court as well. And sent a letter to the UN Secretary General advocating that the UN not push abortion during the coronavirus crisis. Now, Vice President Mike Pence also gave a speech on the importance of protecting life and reaffirmed the administration's pro-life positions. He also became the first vice president to visit a pregnancy resource centre. In contrast, Kamala became the first vice president to visit an abortion centre. Yeah, quite a contrast. And he also signed an executive order that reinforces existing protections for children born prematurely, with disabilities or in medical distress, including infants who survive abortion. And probably his greatest feat, I would say, as a result of his appointments to the Supreme Court, which is his role and privilege, just as it is every president before him, although those appointments didn't get attacked like Trump's did for the appointments, did they? Even though one of them, a black woman who was appointed by Biden, couldn't define what is a woman. But these justices overturned the horrendous and legally flawed Roe v. Wade, and every unborn child celebrated, and the media didn't. Now, that's an impressive list. We may not miss his personality. He undoubtedly has many flaws, as do all politicians, but his policy achievements were stunning, and we need more of them. Now, here's one other person that's voting for Donald Trump, Chloe Cole, who spoke at our conference in July. She's from California. She is a victim of the left's ideology of chemicalizing and castrating young, confused people in the name of gender ideology.
12 years old. Doctors led me to believe that I was transgender. I was told that puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries were my only options. They were wrong. Now, I suffer from irreversible changes to my body and mind that I will live with for the rest of my life. Today, Kamala Harris is pushing children into these procedures, limiting their choices later on in life. That's why I'm voting for Donald Trump, because he's committed to protecting children from these rash decisions.
Yeah, now, of course, Kamala doesn't only want to promote the butchering of young people, but also the killing of the unborn children in the womb. She is one of the most anti-life politicians ever, but she won't be the last, sadly. Now, I want to be fair and acknowledge that some of Trump's messaging recently has rightly caused concern amongst pro-life groups. And I just want to show you a couple of excerpts from previous McBLOGs. At the beginning of April, I said this in an episode. So this week, President Trump says that each state should follow the will of the people and pass state-specific laws on abortion. Now, this is basically what the Supreme Court handed down when they overturned Roe v. Wade, sent it back to each state to decide. But Trump had previously hinted at a federal ban across the whole country, banning abortion after 15 weeks.
They're coming in with a certain number of weeks, and the number 15 is mentioned. I haven't agreed to any number. I'm going to see. We want to take an issue that was very polarizing and get it settled and solved so everybody can be happy. But I will.
Okay, but this week he laid out his policy, and I want to play you the full clip so that you can hear it all in context, something the media in New Zealand will never do. And he first talked about IVF and encouraging families to have babies, and this is a good tool if it promotes the natural process between married couples who are having difficulty. But unfortunately, as we know, IVF has become about surrogacy, sperm donation, manipulating science and parenthood, and the discarding of unwanted embryos. Those parts of IVF are unacceptable. But here's the specific part of his speech where he talks about abortion.
Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and in fact demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended. It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth, is unacceptable, and almost everyone agrees with that. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart, or in many cases, your religion or your faith. Do what's right for your family and do what's right for yourself. Do what's right for your children. Do what's right for our country and vote. So important to vote. At the end of the day, it's all about will of the people. That's where we are right now, and that's what we want, the will of the people. I want to thank the 6 justices, Chief Justice John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Neil Gorsuch, incredible people, for having the courage to allow this long-term, hard-fought battle to finally end. This 50-year battle over Roe v. Wade took it out of the federal hands and brought it into the hearts, minds, and vote of the people in each state. It was really something. Now it's up to the states to do the right thing. Like Ronald Reagan, I am strongly in favor of exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. You must follow your heart on this issue, but remember, you must also win elections to restore our culture and, in fact, to save our country, which is currently, and very sadly, a nation in decline.
Okay, so that was it in context, and you'll note it looked as though it was clipped, but that was the way it was produced and published. We've given it to you in its context. So although Trump championed the overturning of Roe v. Wade, he didn't publicly say whether he would endorse a 15-week abortion ban, which prominent anti-abortion pro-life activists had hoped he would. Yeah, so that was the statement that I made in April. Now, polls have shown time and time again that most Americans want abortion to be legal after the 2022 that overturned Roe v. Wade and returned the issue to the states, though many are open to restrictions such as a ban after 16 weeks. So, like New Zealand, they support abortion, but certain types. And when I say New Zealand, I say the majority, but with restrictions. And that's something the Democrats and the pro-abortion politicians in New Zealand don't want. They have no respect or acknowledgement of the unborn child. Now, commentators have said that Trump's stance could play well with centrist and independent voters who are most likely to decide the fate of the 2024 election. And he appeared to allude to that by encouraging listeners to do what's right for your children, do what's right for our country, and vote. But I want Trump to be unapologetically pro-life. Now, just one other clip that I want to show you. After the presidential debate between Trump and Biden, when the world realised that the Democrats and the media had been gaslighting us all about Biden's cognitive ability to be the president, I commented on this part of the debate and Trump's comments. Have a watch. Trump got high marks for pressing Biden on his extremism on abortion, but he also caused major concerns from pro-lifers because he affirmed the availability of chemical abortion drugs, which are used in approximately 2/3 of abortions nationally in the US and also here in New Zealand. And he said that he wouldn't block abortion pills from being mailed to states that prohibit abortion. So let's have a look at a couple of segments of the debate. CNN got very quickly onto the abortion debate because I was quite stunned at the end when they were doing the analysis and just how much they kept on coming back to the abortion issue. So it was one of the early questions that they put to Trump and Biden.
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
Okay, now Trump is totally wrong on this, on two aspects. The Supreme Court did not approve the abortion pill. The Supreme Court rejected a challenge to the safety and availability of the pill used for chemical abortions. But they said it was because the pro-life organisations lacked the legal standing to sue. So it was a procedural issue. And they said it because the pro-life doctors can conscientiously object in the US to prescribing the drug. So therefore they weren't affected. So the ruling was based on procedural grounds. The court did not address safety concerns or the FDA's decision in 2016 to relax the regulations on the abortion drug. And it remains a dangerous drug that now causes more than 60% of all abortions in the US. But secondly, he's wrong because he should be open to allowing a review of the drug. He continues.
And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back, religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart.
Yeah, he's right that he appointed Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe v. Wade. I mean, he should receive huge credit for that. The way the pro-abortion groups and the mainstream media manifested with that decision just shows how significant it was. But sadly, allowing different states to determine the law in their state means that the unborn child is hugely at risk in Democrat-led states and even some Republican states. He continues.
The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back.
Yep. Well, he's right. And we know Obama championed abortion. But the so-called fact checkers at the Associated Press, CNN, the Washington Post, claim that former President Donald Trump was wrong to say in the debate that not only do late-term abortions and partial birth abortions still occur, that babies have been killed after an abortion and that the Democrats support it. But Trump is correct when he talked about the Virginia governor. It was big news when the Democrats said that, but it was part of the policy. Have a listen to what he actually said.
You know, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion.
Yeah. So that's an early episode a couple of months ago. Now, look, if I had my way, Ron DeSantis would be the Republican nominee. I like his policies and I like his personality. But he's not the nominee. So we're back to the binary choice of Kamala or Trump. One of these two will be the next US president. That's the way the system works. Even if you don't vote, that's the way the system will still work. There is no third option. And look, please note, this is not an endorsement, as every Hollywood star seems to be doing at the moment. I'm not endorsing anyone or telling anyone who they should vote for. You need to come to your own conclusion based on your own research and understanding and personal conviction. This is just a simple presentation of how I would vote if I was an American citizen and why I would vote that way. Now, to conclude, Dennis Prager is a columnist for the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated radio host and creator of PragerU. And he wrote a superb and challenging column entitled, "You Hate Trump? Get Over It." And here are a few excerpts, and actually there's some great statements in it. It says, "A great many Americans claim that they cannot vote for former President Donald Trump because they loathe him. This was also their argument in 2016 and 2020. That argument was childish in 2016 and 2020, and it remains childish in 2024. I say childish because mature people don't vote on the basis of who they like. They vote on the basis of which candidate is best for the country. As I asked both 8 years ago and 4 years ago, other than friends and a spouse, whom do you choose based on how much you like a person? Do you choose your surgeon on that basis? If you or a loved one had cancer and were presented with a choice of two surgeons, one known to be an honourable man and a loyal husband, the other known for his abrasive personality and for being a womanizer, but also known as one of the best cancer surgeons in the country, which would you choose? We all know the answer. Trump is, they constantly tell us, a threat to democracy. But the threat is coming entirely from the Democrats. For the first time in American history under Joe Biden, the Department of Justice has been weaponized against political opponents, Trump. For the first time in American history, a former president and nominee of one of the two major political parties has been arrested and put on trial for nonsensical charges, moreover. For the first time in American history, an administration has colluded with big tech to suppress political speech they consider unfriendly. And for the first time in American history, one major party has attempted to remove the presidential nominee of the other major party from multiple state ballots. Yeah, they tried to remove Trump. And the intelligence agencies have been likewise politicised. 51 current and former heads of intelligence agencies lied on behalf of the Democrat presidential nominee when they signed a statement right before the 2020 election declaring that the Hunter Biden laptop story was the product of Russian disinformation. When it comes to marital fidelity, compared to three of the Democrats' heroes, President John F. Kennedy, Senator Edward Kennedy, and President Bill Clinton, Donald Trump is almost a holy man. We know how bad things will get because we know what the Biden-Harris administration has already done to the country, because we know what Harris and her fellow California Democrats have done to California, and because we know what Governor Tim Walz has done to Minnesota. To vote for the Democrats because one hates Trump is not merely childish. When how one feels about Trump is more important than the future of the country, we are dealing with something far more serious than childishness. We are dealing with destructive narcissism. I'll put the link in so you can read the full article. Look, when the choice is binary, which a presidential election is, it's one or the other. There is no third option. And when the other option is Kamala and everything that comes with her and her shocking and destructive policies, I'm more than happy to put on record that there is only one option: Donald Trump. He's not perfect, far from it. But name me one politician who is perfect. There isn't one.